Hey, what's going on, guys? Rum Gaming here, back with another video. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about Civ 7, and we're just going to do a short settlement guide on where to start and kind of how to expand. So, first thing I want to point out is something called the Settler Lens. So, before you place your city, you can turn this lens on, and it's going to highlight the best spots to settle. So, the blue tiles are going to be for freshwater, the yellow tiles are going to be for dry land, and the red tiles are going to be off limits and places that you cannot settle in. So if you do want to enable this, you can click on the telescope icon at the bottom left of the screen and selecting the settler view. Now, when you do settle in Civ 7, you want to make sure that you're settling around fresh water. And the reason you want to do this is because fresh water is going to give you a major bonus to your happiness. And happiness is something that you're going to want to maintain as your cities do grow. So the game might have you hunt around a little bit for access to a river or a lake, but normally it's pretty close to your starting location. And it's also pretty important to settle near the coast. And one of the reasons for this is so that you can explore better. Exploration is very important in Civ 7, and having access to that coast is going to allow you to kind of roam around whichever landmass you're on. Just know that in the early stages of the game, you cannot explore the deep ocean. But getting access to, again, to that early exploration is going to be very key so that you can find new places to settle your cities. Now, you also want to pay pretty close attention to your surrounding terrain and any sort of other environmental factors. So, for example, units will halt if they do run into any sort of rough terrain. So, settling a city around a rough terrain could actually work out in your favor because the enemy units are going to have a lot harder time marching around your city. Another decent strategy is, especially if you're going for a military victory, is to settle your cities around impassable terrain. This is going to make it that much more difficult for people getting in and out of your civilization. You also want to be pretty mindful of resources you're actually settling around. So certain resources, just say for example gold or silver, are still going to be important in the Antiquity Age, but typically food and production are going to be more important for growing your empire early. And the reason for this is because you really want to be focusing on growth in the early game. So make sure you're picking the correct nodes to settle around, and as your cities do grow, make sure that your population is working the right tiles around your city. Another thing that's going to be very important is you want to go into whatever game you're playing with a victory condition in mind, whether that's science, whether that's culture, military, doesn't matter. You want to have that kind of in your head because you're going to want to settle your cities around specific resources that are going to help you achieve that victory condition. So for example, silk is going to get you 10% culture, jade is going to get you 15% gold, incense will get you 10% science, and so forth. So you want to make sure you're putting your cities around any sort of resources that are going to help you scale into the late game. Another thing you're going to be looking out for is natural wonders. So if you do settle around a natural wonder, you will be getting whatever specific bonuses come from that natural wonder. So for example, if you do settle around the redwood forest, you're going to be getting +2 food, +2 production locally, and then +2 happiness empire wide. And it's also going to give a pretty nice science and culture burst as well to that settlement. So again, earlier we were talking about why exploration is so important, because that's going to give you the information that you need to settle your towns and cities in the best spot possible. Another thing you're going to be mindful of is some leaders actually have unique bonuses with specific tiles. So for example, Chimer will get science and any sort of tropical tiles around their cities. So just something to keep an eye out for if you are playing one of those specific leaders. Another thing we want to mention is don't hang around in the early game too long, trying to find the best place to settle a city. We typically recommend not spending more than 2 or 3 turns trying to settle your city because you will become at a massive disadvantage if you are waiting too long to get that capital city down. So again, one of the main things that you want to be looking for, especially in the early game, is the abundance of food. Cities do take a lot of food to grow. So really your best bet is to settle along some sort of freshwater source that has a lot of food tiles around it and a decent amount of production. Again, that fresh water is really going to help you out when happiness does become a factor, because this is going to allow you to build specific buildings that focus around happiness. All right, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you on the next one.